We're halfway through the swap, and I don't think Josh realises how serious his fags for food habit is. I need him to realise just what his appalling diet could be doing to his health. Otherwise, there's no point in him being here. So, this is my gallery. Gallery that's very specific to you. Come and have a look at this picture here. What is going on there?
It looks like alopecia, hair loss.
Here is protein. Protein is very important in the body for building muscles, maintaining, regenerating, repairing. If you're not getting enough of it in your diet, then what on earth is the point of your body wasting protein by growing hair? Come and have a look at this picture next. What do we think here?
Bad teeth.
Have you heard of scurvy?
Yeah.
It was something that sailors got because they used to live off a very limited diet with very little fresh fruit and vegetables. Gums bleed, they swell, teeth fall out, they get very poor, you get horrible sores on your body, your skin becomes very dry and crusted. Deficiency in vitamin C leads to scurvy. You're deficient in vitamin C, but there's an added issue with you. Smokers' requirements of vitamin C, we think, are about double non-smokers' requirements. What's that?
A heart, I think.
Can you see these bits here? They're blackened. That's heart muscle that's been deprived of oxygen and has died. That person died of a heart attack. It's a complete myth that only fat people have cholesterol deposits, blocked arteries and get heart attacks. Super skinny people are just as at risk.
Heart disease is the UK's biggest killer, responsible for a quarter of premature deaths in men. At risk are the 60% who don't eat their 5 a day, and smokers who are twice as likely to have a heart attack. Guilty of both, Josh could be heading for an early grave.
If I keep going the way that I'm going, I'm going to lose all my hair, all my teeth, and eventually my life. Shit.
It's been a tough day at the feeding clinic, but things are looking up in the kitchen.
I know, actual food.
After a 48-hour wait, it's pasta and sauce for Louise versus a large takeaway doner kebab with chilli sauce, mayonnaise and chips for Josh.
I'm really enjoying this. I'm actually getting quite full.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, now that is a good start, isn't it?
And after a fag-free day, it seems Josh's appetite is making a comeback.
Before dinner, I was actually feeling hungry. I did want to eat something. Even that, as a slow start, is still a good one.
Like Louise and Josh in our feeding clinic, a growing number of people are struggling to maintain healthy and normal relationships with food. 1 in 4 adults admit they feel guilty after eating and believe they'd be happier thinner. And an incredible 6 out of 10 women say they hate the way they look. It's no surprise, therefore, that 1 in 100 women have a clinically diagnosed eating disorder. This series will be following 3 women whose eating disorders present themselves in very different ways. 32-year-old Meena Krishna is suffering from bulimia. Bulimia sees sufferers craving food, then secretly binging on large amounts. The binge is followed by feelings of guilt and self-hatred, which leads them to vomit. This illness affects 5 times as many people as anorexia, but is less obvious, as its sufferers often look a healthy weight.
I'd describe bulimia as a compulsion, almost like being possessed by something else.
34-year-old Emma Paul is struggling with anorexia nervosa, an illness characterised by restricting food intake. It affects almost 7,000 people in the UK each year.
Constantly thinking about food all day, every day, constantly in fear of it.
19-year-old Erin Ruddick straddles both illnesses. Her condition is called anorexia binge purge subtype. Like anorexia nervosa, sufferers restrict what they eat, so are often very underweight. However, their love of food leads them to lose control, secretly binging, then vomiting.
A real binge for me would be literally like I would feel like a shark on a feeding frenzy.
Their eating disorders currently control every part of their lives, as well as affecting those closest to them. Over the coming 8 weeks, they'll be taking part in a course designed to tackle their issues surrounding food. The course will be supervised by consultant psychiatrist Dr. Helena Fox and led by eating disorders dietitian Ursula Philpott.
Today is the first day I'll be meeting the group and they'll be meeting each other. I want to gain an insight into what the group eat on a day-to-day basis, so I've asked them to bring along a typical day's diet.
Mina's day starts with a balanced breakfast.
A typical breakfast is porridge or muesli. Then it's quite likely I'll have a binge, as you can see, and throw it up. The smell's making me feel a bit ill. I hate this kind of stuff. It makes me feel sick just to look at it. This disgusting stuff, I hate it.
Mina's been struggling with different eating disorders for as long as she can remember.
I think I've been caught in the cycle of eating disorders for over 10 years, maybe 15 or 17. So that would be the longest relationship of my life.
She was first diagnosed with anorexia nervosa in 2005, and at her worst, weighed just 6 stone 2. By 2007, she was binging and vomiting excessively and was diagnosed with low-weight bulimia.
A typical binge will last somewhere between half an hour and 45 minutes. I usually binge and purge about between 3 and 6 times a day. A binge could consist of a large family-sized trifle, maybe 2 or 3 packets of cupcakes, a packet of French fancies and several packets of biscuits, and usually a few large bars of chocolate as well.
Mina's huge binges can contain up to 30,000 calories each time.
She's been known to eat tubs of cream, bags of sugar on particularly bad occasions, things out of the bin.
It is amazing how much I can put away and still stand up straight and act normal.
To me, bulimia is something, it's akin to addiction, I feel. It's like some member of your family is ill-treating themselves and there doesn't seem to be anything you can do about it.
Eating disorders are really difficult to recover from because of the impact of malnutrition and starvation on the brain. That makes all the symptoms, the behaviours, the thoughts and the feelings worse. So that even if one wants to get out of an eating disorder, and even if one is motivated to do so, one can find oneself swamped in a morass of negative thoughts and feelings.
Suffering with anorexia, Emma only manages a black coffee to kickstart her day.
Just to go with a coffee in the morning isn't adequate. Breakfast is about break fast, to break the fast overnight, and a coffee will not break the fast because it's just water, really, especially if it's got no milk in it.
Anorexia tends to affect women in their mid to late teens, but a growing number of women are being affected by it in later life. 34-year-old Emma Paul developed anorexia just 3 years ago, but it's rapidly taken a firm grip.
The eating disorder affects everything. I was about to say everything I do. I think I should say everything I don't do.
After travelling the world for 2 years, moving back to Bournemouth to live with her mother left Emma feeling unhappy and unfulfilled.
From being my own person, being totally independent, doing what I wanted, when I wanted. Back here, it was back to sort of 9 to 5, and I just started to lose my energy inside myself.
Her new focus in life became training for a marathon.
People started commenting on my size and saying that I was losing weight and that I was getting too thin.
In October 2008, Emma was diagnosed with anorexia, and just 7 months later, her weight dropped to just 5 stone, and she was hospitalised for 4 months. To differentiate between herself and her illness, she's named her inner critic Ed, short for eating disorder.
I had to label it as something to try and distinguish between whether it was Emma or Ed that was talking. It scares me to think how many years I've lost already and how long he might still hold on to me for. I want a life.
Erin's struggle with food begins every day at breakfast.
Often I won't eat breakfast or my lunch, or sometimes I'll eat breakfast or lunch but I've vomited through the day, I'm feeling really low.
Erin now realises she was displaying anorexic tendencies in her early teens. At 14, she developed bulimia, secretly binging and purging, until finally telling her parents and seeking professional help at 17. As her weight dropped lower, she was diagnosed later that year with anorexia with a binge-purge subtype.
People don't understand that There are different types of anorexia, and I'm not someone who hates food. I'm someone who loves food. I love cooking. I love anything to do with food. Being sick and trying to be thin, for me, I don't think it's really about looking better. It's more about the way I feel about myself and my low self-esteem. I get such highs when I'm eating, such a rush of happiness, pretty much like a drug addict, I suppose.
Just like a loving look on her face when she's eating her food. It completely dominates her life. She doesn't think about much else apart from food, to be honest.
But Erin's obsession with food is having a devastating effect on her everyday life.
I've got no concentration, I've got no energy. Everything about university has been affected by my eating disorder negatively. I can't stay awake in lectures. I've got no fun left in me because of the eating disorder. I'm young now, I want to live my life while I'm young. I don't want to have to put that off. I'd rather be dead than live with the eating disorder forever.
Erin, Emma and Mina all have lives that are completely dominated by food.
I'm hoping over the next 8 weeks to see some behaviour change from all members of the group, and for the group to get much more insight into why they do what they do and what they may need to do to start to recover.
Next week, Ursula encourages the group to confront their fear of food head-on in the supermarket.
Eating something like that will just make me think about being sick, because that's the sort of thing I eat in order to be sick.
If you've been affected by any of the issues raised, go to our website, channel4.com/Supersize v Superskinny. Back in the feeding clinic, it's the final meal of the swap. And it's microwaved spaghetti bolognese versus a giant-sized portion of sausage casserole with peas and 9 roast potatoes.
Do you think that your little boy is now going to learn what you've learned from this through you?
Yeah, I'm going to teach him to cook healthily, not eat so much, great big portions. I mean, sometimes he has one of them plates that big. Saturday I'm going to have a smashing session with all of them. And they're all going out the window. Oh, Josh, I'm now going to eat my last mouthful of the small meal that you gave me, and you finished the meal that I gave you. You've devoured it.
Yes. Proud.
I'm proud of you. Oh yeah, baby.
Sorry.
And on that glorious note of appreciation from Josh, it's the end of an emotional but successful swap. The following morning, and it's time to say farewell to the feeding clinic. To achieve their goals, Louise and Josh have been given diet plans to follow.
I think I've learned enough to lose weight.
For years I've been in the same routine and it's done me no favours. But even after just a few days, I'm getting up earlier, eating more, and the best thing, I'm smoking far less than I was.
Take care. Josh and Louise will be reunited in a few months' time for their final weigh-in. Before that, Louise has a date in America with a 41-stone woman whose own comfort eating has had dire consequences.
See where it bows out? Thousands of fractures in my foot. You either live or you give up.